Today, I want to invite you to think bigger, beyond just daily stress, beyond a single crisis or argument. We're exploring the deep currents of family legacy, the habits, strengths, struggles, and silent codes our families passed down, often long before addiction ever showed up. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Bonnie Adams, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and this is episode 4 of From Chaos to Calm, where we will be looking at the legacies we live and healing generational patterns through addiction. If you've ever wondered why your family reacts the way it does, or why you do, you're not alone. Sometimes our moves make perfect sense once we understand where they come from. Family legacy is more than baggage. It's pain, unresolved wounds, or traditions of silence. But it's also the strength to get through tough seasons, adaptability in chaos, and the humor that brings people together after a blow-up. Sometimes the very behaviors we label as problems, like overfunctioning, joking, shying away from conflict, started as necessary tools for survival and connection. Generations growing up around stress or scarcity often become resourceful problem solvers. Families who survive trauma may have developed fierce loyalty, deep spirituality, or unique rituals for comfort and bonding. These gifts are handed down alongside the struggles. Psychologist Murray Bowen's family systems theory points out that traits aren't just inherited by blood, but by example. You might always jump in to fix things because your caregivers did, sometimes for a very good reason. Let's take a moment to reflect. What survival moves show up in your family? Are they mostly about safety or about nurturing? What are you secretly proud to have inherited, even if it's tough sometimes? Not all adaptations are problems. Consider the fixer. They're quick thinking, responsible, unafraid of hard work. The family peacemaker is often the first to sense tension, skilled at reading a room, gentle with words. Even those who withdraw sometimes, known as the avoiders, are scraping together self-reliance to protect themselves and others. Humor gets its own mention here. Many families use laughter as a bridge through chaos, a way to say what can't be spoken directly. Spirituality and rituals, lighting candles, preparing special meals, sharing stories or prayers often act as anchors in the storm. The issue isn't the adaptation itself, but getting stuck there. Reliable turns into rigid. Helpful becomes enabling. Playful slides into performative. The challenge is learning to not be used by these inherited roles. Think about this for a moment. When is your strongest adaptation? When does it get in the way? Try to spot both. Across thousands of families in research and practice, we see the same dance. One family member manages stress by cleaning or taking over logistics. Another covers pain with jokes. A third closes off and becomes quietly self-sufficient. After a blow-up, maybe everyone goes silent for days. Sometimes old wounds leak into new crises, a pattern first learned a generation or even 3 ago. And these stories belong to so many. A grandmother copes by feeding everyone after every argument, which is probably a ritual born of a time when food was scarce and comfort was rare. Or a parent who can't rest until every detail is handled, echoing ancestors who survived uncertainty through control and action. Or maybe siblings who can talk for hours about anything but feelings, upholding rules about not making things worse with hard emotions. In therapy and support groups, so many people discover not only the cost of these legacies, but also their creative, caring core, the way that they've kept families afloat. Think about what behaviors, words, or rituals are fixtures in your family's hardest moments. How might they have helped in the past, even if they're less useful now? In my practice, I often use what's called a genogram. It's more than a family tree. It's a map of relationships, emotional bonds, important life events, and family roles. I draw out a few generations, usually 3, and we look at traditions such as who steps in during crisis, who fades back, and where do we see patterns repeating of patterns of helping, fighting, loving, or avoiding. Try mapping out your own family genogram. Look at the last 3 generations on both sides and see if you can notice who's the first to act, who's the first to comfort, and even who's the first to criticize. Who can name pain out loud and who jokes instead. How is help given? And what happens when someone asks for support? Mapping the family story on paper or journaling it brings clarity. It's no longer about blame, but about possibility. Try sketching or writing your family's legacy traits, both pain and power, and see what surprising strengths you notice. What have you copied intentionally or even unconsciously? Now I want to look at why these responses feel so in the bones and so hard to change. And neuroscience provides some clues for us. Trauma expert Bessel van der Kolk explains how the body and brain learn and what safety and threat feel like from an early age, even before memory forms. Survival in stressful families can look like silence, humor, fixing, and avoidance. It creates well-worn neural pathways. Judith Herman's research on family trauma highlights how secrecy and denial, while originally protective, can quietly inhibit growth and healing when carried too long. On the flip side, positive psychology, Martin Seligman, reminds us that strengths like gratitude, creativity, or spiritual ritual are also passed down neurologically and socially. When a family prays, laughs, or sings through hardship, those neural patterns shape hope and not just survival. So legacy is a mix. What hurt us, what saved us, what gives us resilience now. Now ask yourself, where do I see positive rituals, community building, or creativity as lasting gifts in my story? How could I bring those forward on purpose? Now let's name some family rules. Families, explicitly or not, all have rules. Some foster growth, we show up for each other, we celebrate everyone's birthday. Others are constricting. Don't talk about feelings, never say no, or keep up appearances at all costs. Therapists encourage writing these rules down. When voiced, they begin to lose their power as unspoken law. It becomes easier to choose, adapt, or let go. Intentional legacy building, not reflexive habit. A rule isn't just no hitting or ask before you use my stuff. It can be we are encouraged to express our emotions in a healthy way, and it's never okay to call names during a disagreement. Or it can even sound like boundaries aren't to be tolerated here, or it's okay to give the silent treatment if I'm angry or upset with someone. Now try this. Write out 3 family rules or scripts. Acknowledge how they served your family or protected someone in the past. Which, if any, are worth reimagining or gently challenging now. So how do you actually expand your family's legacy from inside out? Well, decades of research point to a few effective tools. Mapping and reflection is one. We're going to go back, draw a genogram, or just simply journaling 3 generations of crisis response brings helpful distance to it. Once you see why that aunt handled hard times by making others laugh, that a grandparent managed by tidying or planning, you can start making new choices. The next is to try a gentle family dialogue. Consider ways to safely discuss family patterns. If direct conversation isn't realistic, even talking with friends or support groups about legacies and adaptation can lift shame and show new options. Here's a few scripts for yourself or others. You can try saying things like, I notice we always blank when things go wrong. Where do you think that came from? Or what do you think worked for us when times were hardest? Or what could work now? Try adaptive role expansion. Try using, but not being used by, your legacy strengths. Fixers can invite others to help. Jokers can ask deeper questions when the laughter fades. Peacemakers can set boundaries as well as keep harmony. Avoiders can try gentle moments of connection. Start intentionally. In a future stressful moment, pause and ask, which part of my legacy do I want to lead? Try creating new rituals. Growth research shows that introducing ritual, whether spiritual, creative, or simply connective, helps reshape family identity. Consider gratitude sharing or shared meals, sober holidays, humor hours, or small kindnesses, even if it's just for yourself. Next, practice compassion and flexibility. Kristen Neff's self-compassion approach reminds us that noticing an old adaptation is already a victory. When you slip into a familiar role, pause to notice, forgive, and reset. Growth requires kindness to self as much as others. Now, when I say forgive here, what I mean is forgive yourself for the adapted response that you were about to express, or maybe you already did express. After a tough moment, write one way you used a legacy strength. Was it helpful or limiting? What would you try next time? And as always, professional support. Sometimes legacy patterns are anchored too deep for solo work. That's a sign to seek support. Family therapists, trauma-informed counselors, Al-Anon and SMART recovery groups are lifelines. Families who seek help, research shows, adapt and thrive at far higher rates in the long haul. Change isn't smooth. Sometimes family stories push back. Maybe someone says, "Why are you dredging up the past?" Or "This is just how we are." That's normal. It's not a reason to quit. Try using neutral language. I'm trying to do things a little differently. Focus on your choices. When old resistance appears, loop back to self-care and outside community when family shifts stall. Remember that progress is invisible at first, measured in one honest conversation, one small pause, a single new ritual. Hold your own boundary and celebrate every gentle attempt at growth. As we finish, take real time for yourself. List the strengths: humor, creativity, resourcefulness, loyalty you want to keep alive. Write down an adaptive move you'd like to expand or a constricting old rule you wish to outgrow. Imagine even briefly the family rituals, rules, or stories you hope someone will inherit from you. And remember, legacies shift not by erasing the past, but by adding to it. More honesty, more flexibility, more compassion. Your family's legacy is more than its pain. It's every act of survival, every story of strength, every new tradition that you choose. You don't have to do it alone, but you do get to choose what happens next. See you next time.